Hi there. Welcome back to my second furniture flipping video. Today we've got an 80s style molded hollow metal chair. It's a really short squat chair, like a vanity chair. I looked it up just by the manufacturer, which is just Costco, and apparently they were super popular, but again, they're pretty cheap, or they're manufactured pretty cheaply, so they don't really go for a whole lot. So this chair on its own is not really worth that much. I think I got it for $8 at a like a peddler's mall. But if you can find a complete set of this with its vanity, with the light up mirror and everything, those are going for like $900 on Etsy. So keep your eye out. Right now, I'm just taking the seat off so that I can get the chair prepped. It's like really smooth, cheap metal. It's what you would expect from something that basically comes in a box and you have to assemble yourself. You can see that I'm missing 3 of the 4 foot pads. I took the 4th one off. I found that a good alternative to that is to use like metal bonder as like a foot pad and let it dry, and that's pretty durable. You can see here I'm trying to use furniture metal polish to see if maybe I can get the gold to be really nice and clean. I don't prefer gold as one of my metals, but I wanted to try and see. It didn't clean up to a nice pure gold. It was still pretty dirty, and this is an older chair, so I was fine with covering it up. So here I'm sanding. I'm using a sanding block, not my hand sander, just because that provides you with a little bit less of the flattening out of the rounded parts of an object. And with this chair, every part of it is rounded, so I figured use a sanding block and some good primer, and that will make up for, maybe not getting every little tiny spot on the chair, or if the sanding isn't really as rough as you would typically want for bonding. If you use a good primer underneath it, usually you can get away with sanding a little bit less. And I hate sanding rounded surfaces. I hate sanding everything, but I specifically hate sanding small little crevice areas or rounded surfaces because you never know if you've gotten it. You're constantly like dusting it off, checking, doing it again. It's really annoying. This chair was particularly annoying because there is not a flat surface on it. Every single part of it that needed to be sanded was cylindrical. Patience is all I can really give you. This is sped up to like 800 speed, but I think it probably took me half an hour to get the whole thing completely cleaned up, sanded, and then cleaned again. And actually, I will tell you a secret. I forgot until I was halfway through priming it to wipe it down after I sanded it. So it didn't really end up affecting the finish, and you'll end up seeing. But remember to wipe everything down before you sand it, because that can be, if you're looking for a mirror-like finish, that will screw your finish up. But in this case, I wasn't really concerned. It's an $8 chair. I love the shape of it. I love that rainbow shape, that half round shape. It's very 1980s. I love it. I love the idea of a cheap metal frame chair, and then just a vinyl seat. It's just the colors for me were really not my style. For a long time, I was just black and white. That was all I wanted to paint things or do things. But I found myself kind of gravitating towards some 1980s colors, just not these, like pastel pinks, pastel greens, and yellows, but not kind of a dirty, cheap gold with white vinyl seating. So I wanted to take some colors that I do like, a different style, very mid-century modern mod, 60s and 70s colors, warm metals and warm reds, oranges, yellows, and bring those to this chair. So here you see me priming it. I primed it with, I like this primer. I like that using it, especially when I'm going to paint a metal surface like a warm metal color like copper or brass, or if I did want to use gold, I like using a warm primer underneath just because it gives me kind of a hint as to what the thing's going to look like when I when I get finished with it. So I'm just showing you me spray painting it so that you can see it's nothing special. I will say it's hard to spray paint this sort of metal, this again cheaper just extruded tube metal, because the paint I found, when you sand it, it sticks pretty well. If you don't sand it, it'll do this thing where it kind of like bubbles up and you can see some of the metal underneath and it gets kind of uneven. So all I can advise is do several coats and do them, let them dry completely in between. You can see here, this primer dried pretty quickly. The bottom part, there's probably a minute between this clip and the last one, and the bottom part already looks almost dry. So if you do light coats and you just kind of don't worry about getting everything completely covered the first time around, it's not a big deal. And when you're doing something intricate like this, where you are going back and forth to different sections because everything is round, a lot of times you can get away with focusing on one section, moving to like the back versus the front, then doing one side and the other side. And by the time you're done with all the sides, the first one is ready for a second coat again. And I'm doing this kind of in cold, rainy weather. It was probably like 40 degrees outside. So that does hinder dry time, but this primer does dry super fast. And you can kind of tell that it's dry because of the way that it looks matte once it's finished. So that's basically what we're doing here, is spray painting in sections so that we don't have to deal with will it dry, will it won't dry, am I gonna end up with dry spots and then runs and all that stuff. I don't like dealing with that. So now we're spray painting the color. I went with copper. First I used, I think it's, what is it? You can tell by the can, it's the can with all the colors on the front. I think it's a Krylon color. I'm not sure, but if you look at the lid, it's like a darker copper color. I use that one first. You see it there. I have whole clips of me spray painting with this color, and then I think I actually went ahead and put the seat on and reupholstered it and everything before I realized I just hated this color. It looks really pretty in the sunlight. Unfortunately, this chair is not going outside, so I did have to consider the lighting. It's going inside, and my apartment does not have like hella windows, so I didn't really have an option. I decided I wanted to change it, especially once I reupholstered the seat. And you see right now, I'm actually reupholstering the seat. I just didn't like the color, and I'll show you which one I ended up going with when I repainted it, the frame of the chair, and I really like it. I flash up a picture of it later. But here I'm showing you how I reupholster the seat. I don't do it like you're supposed to do professionally. I start on one side, secure it a few times, pull the other side as tight as I can for flat surfaces, do the same thing on the opposite edges. And then when it comes to corners, basically what I do is I flip it up on its edge and try to get the neatest folds, because you can make like relief cuts sometimes. But I'm not doing these chairs to like sell them. I'm not doing them to be, not professional, but I'm not doing this to like experience heavy wear and to like stand up to daily use, right? This chair is very small. I'm going to put it in a corner somewhere. And that's something that like I think about a lot, is how much am I going to use this? So this is what it ended up looking like the first time. And it looked like that picture of New York. I love New York, New York, Tiffany Pollard sitting on a bed. That's what the chair reminded me of in these colors, just the way that it looks so unassuming and dull, kind of shoved in a corner. So this is the paint I actually ended up using. And the cap of it is like kind of matte. It looks really matte. The paint is not. And so you can see here, it's much more shiny, much more vibrant once I repainted it and gave it a little bit more life. I think it needed a shinier finish to go with the orange corduroy seat that I gave it. So basically what I'm telling you as I scan through these shots is, when it comes to this sort of molded furniture, this shiny metal furniture, sand it, prime it, use a good primer, and try and use a primer that matches the undertones of the color you're spray painting it. And after that, spray it in small, even layers, go section by section, and make sure you maintain that order. And when it comes to upholstering, you see how warm it is? I love that. When it comes to upholstering, don't worry about making it perfect. As long as it looks good enough and it's not going to bother you, I wouldn't be concerned. And when you staple down fabrics and stuff like that, you don't really have to worry about, hey, how good is this going to look? Because you're not looking at the bottom edge of a seat. So that's pretty much my main, takeaways from this seat. Don't overthink it. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. And what I like to do, and what I take away from a lot of my projects, and this one specifically, is if you like the style of a piece of furniture, but you don't like the styling of that piece of furniture. So if you like a mid-century say a mid-century lamp, right? Very simple, minimalist, round shapes, but you don't like that it's in brass, paint it chrome. If you don't like something that's in chrome, paint it brass. really it doesn't matter, because for your specific style, you're going to see something and say, I love the shape of it and I love the color of it. I don't care if going back in time, this wouldn't have been how this looked, or this isn't how it looked when I would have originally bought it, or how it was designed. Who cares? You have it now. Doesn't matter. So thanks for watching this video. Don't really have links to in the description for anything, but that's how I did this. The fabric that I used was a pretty non-stretch fabric. You're not supposed to do that, I don't think. But again, for light usage, like a chair that's only going to really sit in a corner. I call this the cat chair because it's really small. You don't really need to worry about what kind of fabrics you use. Like, am I using the right one? It doesn't matter. Do it for you. If you're looking for like professional refinishing tips, I would look elsewhere. There's a million great channels that you can check out. But for me, this is just how I refinish different types of furniture for my own personal use. I'm not worried about like, am I going to be able to take a screwdriver to the spray paint and it stick to it? I'm just not concerned about that. Not to say I treat my furniture well, but I treat it good enough that I'm not going to do large scale damage to it. And if you think about it, when you redo a piece of furniture and say you use spray paint to refinish the metal, and it's pretty durable, but you can like go in and claw the spray paint off. If you think about it, if you just know what spray paint you used, you can just do it again. You can do it again instead of like spending so much time worrying about it to get like 50% more or like 25% more durability, and then spending 3 times the amount of money on different sealers and top coats and this and that and the other. If it's something small, who cares? But thanks for watching. I'm going to have another video coming out probably in about a week. It's a vintage folding cornet chair. They're the chairs that you would think of in like the 1960s and 70s, a wooden folding chair with a leather or leatherette seat and back. I refinish in a similar style, but it'll be more about sanding and staining down wood, and then refinishing a little bit more, or reupholstering a little bit more complicated of a design. So get ready for that one. After that, I have a third chair that's a 1980s kind of office waiting room chair, if that makes sense. Chrome. Originally, it was chrome with like a knitted seat cover that I covered in, well, you'll see. This third one that I'm talking about, the chrome seat, is really, I think, a great example of what happens when you are reupholstering something just for yourself for daily use. And I'll explain that when we get to that video. But I appreciate you watching as always. If you like the video, I guess you could like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. If you want to give my podcast a listen, if you like queer stuff, if you like storytelling, if you like audiobooks or long form narratives, check it out. It's the Floor Rejects podcast. I'm really proud of season 4, which is the Wells House Phenomenon. It's a spooky gay story. So if that interests you, check it out. But otherwise, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.